All right, welcome everybody. I appreciate you being here with us today. I am going to share my screen so that we can dive into our Empowerment Journal deck. And then we'll actually take a little tour of the website so everybody has a chance to see how to navigate and download all of the journals that we currently have available. First and foremost, though, welcome to the 2023-24 school year. And also want to just send positive thoughts out to all of our friends in Florida and Georgia and the Carolinas. We're thinking about all of you. Stay safe. And, hopefully once that storm blows through, schools can give everybody a little bit of sense of normalcy. So we're going to dive in and get started because I know y'all have a lot going on at the beginning of the school year. Just as a reminder, we are part of the Varsity Brands family. So BSN Sports, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones are the three companies that make up Varsity Brands. And our entire mission, our wake up every day, is to elevate the student experience in sport, spirit, and achievement. One way that we do that is through Believe in You, the collective, and all of the work that we're currently doing to help schools really break the stigma around mental health conversations and give as many proactive mental health tools as we can to those communities. So every time you support one of those three companies, you're supporting the Believe in You mission and the mission of the collective. So thank you very much for being partners with us. What I want to do before we dive into the overall journal program is I just want to remind everybody, if you've seen these before or if you haven't, I want to introduce you to the Varsity Brands Empowerment Rights. So as an educator, as a curriculum writer, I am very outcomes driven. I need specific outcomes to help me craft the resources that we deliver out to teachers and students. And when we looked at proactive mental health, there were no educational outcomes specifically written for that in mind. And so what we did is we went through the social emotional learning literature. We went through the research around all of the work that we were trying to put together, and we created the Varsity Brands Empowerment Rights. So these 5 educational outcomes are what drive all of the content creation that we do behind the scenes. So everyone has the right to live optimistically. This doesn't mean that we are promoting a culture of toxic positivity and you have to be happy all the time. But what we want kids and adults to understand is that if you lose your optimism, because you're going to lose your optimism from time to time, things are going to happen that kind of derail you. Do you have a system and a network in place to help you regain your optimism so that you can look forward to a brighter day tomorrow? So we believe everyone has the right to act on positive motivation. And so you'll learn today a little bit about our emotions and how our emotions are really programs for action. But what we want to do is we want to take all of our emotions, the comfortable and the uncomfortable, and use the energy that they give us to work towards something positive. We believe that everyone has the right to live with respect for self and others. And what we've learned through the literature is that students tend to act with respect towards others when their own self-respect improves. So when you look at our journals in just a little bit, you'll see that we do a lot of work on helping our students and those who participate in our journal program build up their own self-respect. So that's the key piece there. We believe that everyone has the right to communicate with a unique voice. So no matter what level you teach at, you know that at any given day, your student's going to test out some sort of different voice, right? They're going to try to find that unique voice that suits them. Well, we want to celebrate that journey. We want to help them when they come in and they try something new. We want to actually help them find and craft that voice. So from there, the final and kind of ultimate outcome is we believe that everyone has the right to make choices about how to share their greatness with the world. And I think that this is truly like the ultimate educational outcome for every content area, for every adult working with children in a school system, no matter what grade level, right? we want to expose our students to as many different types of experiences as we can so that they can build this repertoire and toolbox of skills and confidence and energy and enthusiasm so that they can launch into the world and share their unique greatness. So these are the Varsity Brands Empowerment Rights. I start many of my presentations this way because I think it's important that we keep our eyes on that North Star and what we're really trying to accomplish. So that will guide everything that you see today. Here's the next thing that I want you all to just be able to take a look at. And when you go to believeinu.com, I'll show you where to get this link. You can actually go in and read the study that was done. But our empowerment program and our journal specifically were built at the beginning of the pandemic as a way to help our students combat so many of the mental health issues that they were facing. It was our way of saying, hey, our kids are remote. They're all over the place. How can we deliver some sort of therapeutic in terms of helping our students manage their emotions? And journaling rose quickly to the top of that solution because, number one, we can deliver them digitally. We can deliver them everywhere. And if you look at the studies, it shows pretty clearly that if someone cannot get access to face-to-face counseling or face-to-face therapy, journaling is the next best therapeutic. And so it just clearly made sense to go in this direction. So in the spring of 2021, and if you guys keep in mind, this is basically when we were going in and out of lockdown and some schools were back in session and some schools were in session. And the next thing you know, there would be an infection and it would shut down again for 3 weeks, tons and tons of uncertainty, right? And so in that backdrop, we sent out hundreds of journals to students in Title I schools, and we worked directly with their health and physical education teachers, and in some instances, their counselors, to train them to deliver the Believe in You Empowerment Program. We, and I say we, the University of Hawaii, Wayne State University, SUNY Cortland, Adelphi University, we got back data on close to 200 students that we could use to really calculate the impact of the program. And what we found that was there were significant differences in students' knowledge of self-awareness, self-management, and relationship skills. And we also saw that students had significant improvement in two things: emotional regulation and self-efficacy. So if you think about this as we're in this very uncertain time, we're delivering this in many times remotely to students in some of the most challenging learning situations anyway, Title I schools. And we were able, through the empowerment program, to help them understand how to regulate their emotions and then to give them more optimism and more confidence that tomorrow is going to be better than today. So I love the work that was done here. We're going to continue to do evaluations like this, but I just wanted to let you know that this data exists, and I'll share the link with you so you can go in and actually read the study if you'd like to. All right, from there, what I want to do here quickly is remind everybody that we're living in a time where we should just assume every person that we come into interaction with has experienced some sort of trauma, right? So we used to call it trauma-informed teaching, and then what shifted, because it's much more than teaching, and say trauma-informed practice. And honestly, I just feel like it has to become a part of who we are and our lifestyle and the way we engage with people, right? And it's not overly complicated. I've taken a lot of the work around trauma-informed practice, and I've tried to distill it down to like working points that I can understand when I engage with my students, right? So what I did was I took it, I basically boiled it down to three main bullets. So trauma-informed practice is built upon safety, empowerment, and healing. And that sounds fantastic, but what does that look like exactly? Well, the foundation of safety is trust. So all the trust building that you do with your students makes them feel safe in your learning environment, in their school, in their community. Everything that you can do to let them know that you are a safe adult for them, and your classroom, your team, your club, whatever, is a safe environment for them to be in. It builds trust that's going to last. From there, the foundation of empowerment is optimism. And so this is a great reminder at the beginning of the school year for you as educators and coaches and club leaders. Just remember that your students feed off your optimistic energy. And if your optimistic energy is drained, they can't feed from that, right? And we need to make sure there's all sorts of self-care tips out there and things that you can dive into. But we need to find what self-care means to us and take care of it, because we need to impart this energy onto our students. So the more optimism we can give them, and again, it's not always being happy, but it's saying, hey, the work we're going to do today is going to impact you tomorrow and the next day, and it's going to make our community and our world better. So from there, the foundation of healing is consistency. And this is the same with any wound, right? If we have a cut on our hand and we clean it and we put a Band-Aid on it, but the next day we get it dirty and we don't change the Band-Aid, it's never going to heal. We have to continually dress that wound. It's the same with any sort of wound. So that trusting environment that you've built so that students feel safe, and the optimism that you're giving them, it has to be consistent over time. It can't just be the first 2 weeks of school. It has to be the entire school year. Now, when we take a look at what's happening with adults in our nation, we know that adults are needing remediation in a lot of this as well, right? So US adults will spend $13 billion in 2023 on life coaching. So self-help books, individualized life coaching, programs, and events. And, you know, this, if you've ever been on any social media, you know, it's flooded with people who are different types of coaches, right? $13 billion. The average life coaching will cost Americans somewhere between $300 and $2,000 per month. So I'm an educator. You all are educators. Even those folks that are not necessarily educators in my sphere, that's hard to afford. That's outside of our budget, right? So if we know that all of this can help us, and we know that we can help our students and our peers and our family members with all of the concepts within this life coaching world, what can we do about it if it's out of reach? So what I want to do is just, let's flow through. Why is this important? Why is it even helpful? Why is it worth so much money? Well, we know great coaches believe in your potential. Great coaches push you to improve. They expand your thinking. They help you build self-awareness and self-confidence, and they hold you accountable. That's why people are shelling out all this money, because they lack that somewhere, right? So this is what I believe. I believe teachers understand the power of having a coach, because teachers are the life coaches for their students. There's so many things that we didn't sign up for as teachers. We did not sign up to be life coaches, most likely. But that's where we find ourselves, because we have to be able to help our students through some of the most basic human elements of life before they can absorb anything that we want to teach them about our content area, right? And so I'm just going to tell you, it's my mission, the mission of Varsity Brands, the Believe in You team, and the partners of the collective. It's our combined mission to help you in this, because we know you didn't necessarily sign up for this. We know you didn't necessarily get a huge budget to help support this work that you have to do, but nonetheless, you have to do it. So one thing that we've found and made foundational across all of Believe in You content is emotions education. And we ran across this work thanks to a book by Hillary Jacobs Hendel called "It's Not Always Depression." And it's a great read and gives you a lot of case studies where, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, you can see yourself as Hillary works with her clients through so many challenging emotional events in their lives. But the foundational piece of her therapy is centered around emotions education. So I was lucky enough to get connected with Hillary, and then she also connected me with a great social worker counselor here in Central New York by the name of Heather Sanford. And they run an emotions education program that we have gone through and have permission to utilize in all of our programming. So I just wanted to give that to you. You want to take a screenshot of that or something. If you need something to read, you're looking for a book, it's a really good one to take a look at. So emotions education is all about working with our core emotions. So what are our core emotions? Simply, they're programs that our body uses to basically navigate the world and stay safe, right? So our emotions like anger and fear, those are pretty obvious, right? So anger and fear give us energy to set boundaries, to fight if necessary, to flee if necessary, right? But our fun emotions, also like joy, excitement, those emotions are also designed to help us navigate the world in a positive way. So, in a nutshell, core emotions propel us to act. So, for health and physical educators and athletic coaches out there, here's the reality: the movement that you work with your students on every single day is helping them process their emotions, because emotions are programs to help energize movement. So emotions propel us to act. There's 6 core emotions: sadness, anger, joy, fear, disgust, and excitement. So I think about these as like primary colors. So we know where there are a lot more emotions, right? Another great book, Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown, it basically outlines every human emotion you can think of and defines it. All of those human emotions are really combinations of these 6 emotions. So just like yellow and blue make green, if you take anger and fear and you blend them together, you get jealousy, just as an example. Because what is jealousy? It's me saying, I'm afraid that if I don't have the newest clothes, the greatest sneakers, the best car, whatever it is, right? If I don't have this thing, I'm not good enough, and people won't believe that I'm good enough. And by the way, somebody else has it and I'm angry about it. So I'm afraid I'm not enough and I'm angry that somebody else is. And those two things combine to create jealousy, right? So that's just one example of how these core emotions really blend together to create the emotions that we work through. But what's important is these are the programs. Sadness wants comfort. So when you feel sad, what do? You gravitate towards those things that make you feel cozy and safe and comfortable. When you're angry, you want to protect and defend. So you're going to set boundaries, but it's giving you the energy to do those. When you're joyful, it wants to be shared, right? When good things happen to us, what do we want to do? We want to call somebody. We want to post it on social media. We want to share it with the world. Fear wants us to run to safety, right? It wants us to get out of whatever danger there is and find safety. Disgust wants us to expel whatever is disgusting us, whatever's toxic in our life. We just have to get rid of it, that icky feeling, right? And then excitement wants to expand, move, celebrate. And this is at the beginning of the school year with students. A lot of times excitement is that emotion that bubbles over and we really wish they could regulate it a little bit more. But those are the 6 core emotions. So in order to really build our authentic self and feel like we can share our greatness with the world and make those choices, we have to be able to work with those core emotions. So we've developed the C's of emotions education to help people stay on track. Here's the 6 C's: calm, connected, curious, courageous, compassionate, and creative. So these are the 6 different things that we want everyone, every human being, to think about as they experience their emotions. So, obviously when there's something dangerous and you feel afraid and you are trying to move to safety, that's not the time to be calm, right? You need to get to safety first, right? But once you can find a place to get that calm, stay connected into that emotion and be curious about it. What am I afraid of? And why am I so angry that I don't have these name brand clothes for the first day of school, whatever the case may be, right? So these are the 6 C's of emotions education. And I go through this much slower when we actually go through and do an emotions education session, but I'm just giving you an overview today so you can kind of understand where our journals come from. So real quick, three different distinct types, segments of our brain. The reptilian brain at the bottom, that controls all the stuff you don't think about: breathing, your heartbeat, digestion, right? It keeps us alive. It's the earliest part of our brain. And then from there, we gained the limbic brain. The limbic brain is our emotional brain. That's where those 6 core emotions are all programmed in. And the reptilian brain and the limbic brain work together because when we are afraid, when we're angry, what happens? Our breath, our respiratory rate automatically goes up. Our heart beats faster. Our digestion slows down, so we have energy for what we need it for. And so our limbic brain and our reptilian brain really work together to create stress response. The neocortex, that's where the 6 C's hang out. That's where thought occurs. That's where learning occurs. Now, stress response is a real thing. It's always been a thing for humans. It's kept us alive. But what's happening with our students today is they're just hanging out in this stress response state. They're constantly stuck in this particular pattern where their brain is telling them, danger, be afraid. And a lot of times that danger comes from this little device, right? So what we need to be able to do is help our students understand how to get themselves out of this fight or flight state, because this is toxic for the body. To stay here too long is toxic for the body. Out of all of these things that are automatic, right? So here's our brain stimulus, which is our emotional program, and then everything becomes automatic by then. The only thing we can actually control by thinking about it is our breath, our breathing. So when we talk about, okay, how do we get in this calm, connected, curious, courageous, compassionate, creative state? The first one is be active. These fight or flight hormones are in our body so that we are ready to move. So let's move. What do our kids do though when they pick up their phone, they see social media, something makes them angry or afraid? They sit in their room alone with this phone. The reality is, if they could get out of that room and go for a walk or play basketball or do anything that they would enjoy, and be able to get those stress hormones moving through their system, they would greatly benefit. They would be able to calm themselves and they would be able to connect back to their authentic selves. Number 2, breathe with a purpose. Breathing is such a, obviously it's basic to human life, but it's such a simple tool for us to give to our students so that they can walk around and have this strategy for calming themselves when they need to and regulating those emotions. And then finally, journal as often as possible. So I recommend that people have a daily journaling routine, but that's probably down the road. If we can get kids to understand that there's a benefit to journaling and get them doing it once a week, I think it's a victory, right? So this is where the work that we're going to be able to do really helps. So if we look at our journals, and we're going to walk through an example in just a bit, they're constructed to guide positive self-talk. So this is living optimistically, but also creating a calm and compassionate state. So many of us ruminate on negative thoughts, and we have this tendency towards negative self-talk, and it's natural, right? Because if we remember the dangerous things, if we remember the things that are negative, it'll keep us safe in the future. That's what our reptilian brain wants to tell us, right? But the reality is we can program our brains to be more positive if we do it in a mindful way. Intention setting. So this is where we can start to think about, how are we going to act on positive motivation? I understand that I'm angry right now, but how can I be curious and courageous and creative about my angry energy and use it to be able to do something positive for myself and my community? Affirmations of self-respect. So this goes back to this idea of living with respect to other. How do we be connected and compassionate with ourselves so that we can be self-respectful as we move through the world? It gives a platform for self-expression. So it's a blank slate. These are journals. You should not grade these journals. Oftentimes, you shouldn't even read them. Just check to see if they're done, or have a discussion around them, or just give them the space to think, right? But it's a place where they can express themselves with a unique voice. They can be connected and courageous on these pages. And then finally, personal exploration and goal setting. We focus a lot on, okay, what are the actions we're going to take today to have a better tomorrow? And how is that relevant for my life today? And how will that be relevant for my future self? Right. So this is how the journals are connected to both the outcomes, the Varsity Brands empowerment rights that I shared earlier, and it's also connected back to those C's. So thanks for bearing with me as I kind of got through that. But I think it's important as you think about rolling out this program and these resources to really kind of understand why we constructed them the way that we did. So journal as often as possible. So what you're seeing is the covers of 4 of our 5-day journals. Like everything with the Believe in You program, the resources that we create are completely free. So they're all housed on believeinu.com, and I'm going to jump there right now. So let's just make sure our technology works. All right. So at this point, you should be looking at the Believe in You website. So believeinu.com, it's actually a little subset of the Varsity Brands website, but believeinu.com will get you right to all of our empowerment resources. So the very first link here, the empowerment journals, we put that there for front and center. So everybody who wants to start the new school year with those journals has an easy click right to it. Like I said, all of these are free. So what I'm going to ask you to do is at some point in time, click into the bulletin newsletter and register for that newsletter. That's going to connect you to the Believe in You program and the collective as a whole. And every time we have a new resource or one of our partners has a new resource, you'll get an email every 2 weeks announcing what's new. So that's what we're asking you to do. There's no cost or anything like that, but it helps us stay connected. And it also helps us really report our impact out to the Varsity Brands folks and all of our partners. So we would really appreciate it if you registered for the bulletin newsletter as well. So we're talking about journals. I'm going to jump right there. There's a lot more to discover on the Believe in You website, but let's stay focused on the journals for right now. So that link takes you into the 5-day program. This is where I'm going to get started, but I just want you all to know there are 40-week journals that many of you probably have either looked at, used, or thought about using. If you're ready to make that 40-week commitment, fantastic. Click into these and have at it. If you look through, there's a teacher's guide, there's a block plan, there's a leader guide, there's all sorts of great resources to help you get started with our 40-week journals. All of the schools that have done our 40-week journals have requested, hey, when's the next journal coming out? Well, it took a really long time and a lot of resources to develop all of those 40-week journals, and we knew it wasn't right for everybody. So what we decided to do instead is create a series of 5-day journals that would allow all of our teachers, whether you've done our 40-week journals or not, to have another place to start, right? So something that's a little bit smaller, that's more thematic. There's no scope and sequence necessarily for our 5-day journals. You could start with growth mindset. You could start with future self. You could come down if you wanted to and start with generosity or great goals. There's really no specific journal that you have to start with. Just think about where you are thematically in your own teaching and then jump in there. If you want a place to start, growth mindset is always a fantastic place. So I'm going to jump in to the growth mindset journal so that you can see how they work. So this is the PDF version. Obviously, you can print this, you can import it into your school's LMS, however you want. The only thing you can't do is print them and sell them, right? But however else, if you want to send these to FedEx and have them mass produced and photocopied for your students in your school, that's totally fine. I do know that a lot of schools are using these on their Chromebooks or their device. So if you open this and expand this up, you'll see that we do have a Google version as well. So you can actually save that right into your Google Classroom, and you can share it with all of your students pretty much easily through that Google platform. But as we're looking at this from cover to end, it's short and sweet. This does, and I want to just point this out. This journal is designed for students and adults. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of backdrop into how this particular journal was created, and then many of our other journals. I have been incredibly blessed to work for a company where we have leaders that live the mission of elevating the student experience every day. And they understand that students are a part of a larger community, and they care deeply about those communities. In the heart of the pandemic, one of the things that really helped me as I was navigating, just like all of you were navigating, honestly, was the Varsity Brands leadership. And I sent an email to Adam Blumenfeld, who is the CEO of Varsity Brands, and I said, hey, I want to start this new series of journals. Would you mind doing a leadership interview with me? It'll just take about an hour, and then I'm going to take the information you give me, and I'm going to turn it into resources for students. And when I sat down with Adam, fascinating conversation. I'd love to be able to share tons of it with you, and maybe one day we'll have him on a webinar with us. But his story is incredible. His father began BSN Sports back in the 1970s, selling sports nets out of the back of his Mustang. And Adam was just a baby. And so his dad built BSN Sports from the back of a Mustang to what it is kind of today, with Terry Babilla leading the charge over there. And but he built it basically from growth mindset, and by building a community of people that he could surround himself with in order to build something amazing. And as I was talking with Adam, knowing that he had done everything at BSN Sports, from work in the warehouse to cleaning the floors, and has worked his way to be the CEO of Varsity Brands today, it's just so remarkable. And it's just a perfect snapshot of what growth mindset can be for the human being. So this journal is an attempt for me to bottle that interview and that energy from Adam and give it out to teachers in schools everywhere. So the very first page defines what growth mindset is, and then a little bit of an explanation of how it will unfold in the next pages that we have coming up. So growth mindset, a belief that abilities are developed through dedication and hard work, that raw talent and common knowledge are just starting points, but it's hard work and consistency that'll really get us to the finish line. So each day, this is day one, each day takes a component of whatever concept, in this case, growth mindset, and it breaks it down and unpacks it in a way that's digestible for people. So the very first component of growth mindset is, number one, embrace challenges. Growth mindset begins when you make the choice to embrace challenges and work to create solutions that will lead to personal development. And so the idea is you have to dig in and get your hands dirty. So you'll notice that in this journal page, this space right here is all the space we're asking people to write in. Our students, our teachers, our administrators, whoever's going to do this journal. It's not a lot. It's going to take 5, maybe 10 minutes. They're going to answer these journal prompts in your own words. What does the phrase embrace challenges mean to you? So they're just going to write here, well, okay, what does it mean to embrace a challenge? And in their own word, they're going to write that down. Next, can you think of a time when you or someone you know embraced a challenge and learned something valuable in the process of digging in? And so they just write a couple of sentences about a person that they have known, or maybe themselves, that has actually learned something valuable by just digging into a challenge. That's it. That's page one. Next page, push through obstacles. So we started digging in, and now what we need to do is rise to the challenge. Growth-minded individuals see obstacles as springboards, not as barriers. Same routine. Here's our prompts. In your own words, what does it mean to rise to the challenge? Name one obstacle that you or someone else that you know are currently facing, and a little bit of space for them to write. we don't want this to be a 45-minute writing assignment. We want it to be quick, and we want folks to be able to do this and move on, make it a part of your day so that it can become a routine. So as we look at growth mindset, number 3 is sustain your effort. You got to play the long game. The next one is learn from feedback. I can only imagine the responses I would get if I ask this question to y'all. Are we seeing a deficiency in coachable students out there? Kids don't know what it means to be coachable anymore, right? This is what this means. Learn from feedback, be coachable. When's the last time we defined what coachable was for kids, right? I realized this in my own coaching is that I would always, I'd say to them, so, hey, great job. I love this coachable kid. This kid's but I never defined it. I never set an expectation around what behavior of coachable is. So this is a short journal page to kind of set that intention. And then finally, be inspired by others. Be inspired by the greatness of others. So instead of that jealousy happening, right, let's now take a look at the actions of the people around us and them sharing their greatness, and let's be inspired by it. And those are the 5 elements of growth mindset. If we can capture those things, we're good. And then at the end, there is a summary page so that they can just kind of have a little bit more room to put their thoughts down around what growth mindset is and how they themselves will demonstrate growth mindset. And then a little bit about the CATA student leadership outcomes. California Association for Directors of Activities, they have great outcomes around leadership, and we leaned into those as well as we developed these journals. And that's it. That's the 5-day journal. So a couple of things to kind of keep in mind. 5 days doesn't necessarily have to mean 5 consecutive days, right? If you're a health educator and you see your students every Tuesday and Thursday, you could make journaling a part of your Tuesday routine. And for 5 weeks, we're going to go through the growth mindset journal, right? And again, just a small space, have a little discussion afterwards, or maybe you have them do their journaling on Tuesday. They have a couple of days to process what they wrote, and then you do a class discussion around it on Thursday. So here you are, you've got the first 5 minutes of your class, or the last 5 minutes of your class, dedicated to growth mindset or grit or loyalty or some of these other things that we have that we dive into. And by the way, we're creating new 5-day journals every single month. So every month you'll get a new title, and we're really looking forward to building out this library. I will tell you, besides the Kevin Atlas video series, which has millions of views on YouTube, so I'm not even trying to compete with Kevin, but besides the Kevin Atlas videos, these journals are our most engaged resource on the Believe in You platform. Thousands and thousands of people have downloaded our journals, and I'm just so happy that we're able to provide this out as a free resource. And I'm excited to get feedback from folks as we kind of go into this next school year and how it's helping out their students. A couple of other things I just want to share. All of these, like I said, and I do want to couch that a little bit. Not all of them are based on leadership interviews. Some of them, for example, the law of gratitude, that's thematic. We did this last November, right around Thanksgiving, to give a thematic journal that would be appropriate for Thanksgiving time. But as we go through these, the lessons that I'm learning from Varsity Brands leadership is it's one of those things like, honestly, I feel like we're democratizing self-help and we're making it affordable for students and teachers because, the coaching that a lot of these leaders could provide, number one, it's phenomenally valuable. But I can imagine they could charge a lot of money for it. But we're not. We're giving it away. So loyalty is one of these interesting things. I interviewed Martha May, who's our Chief People Officer. She's head of human resources for Varsity Brands. And she's just an awesome leader. And she does these Minute with Martha emails. And I tell you what, I really look forward to those. And I absorb everything that she says in those. And so I emailed her and I was like, hey, Martha, I would really love to do an interview for one of our journals. So we kind of settled on this concept of loyalty. And I went in with a set of questions, and the answers that she provided just completely changed my perspective on loyalty and what a leader would expect from loyalty. A leader, a corporate leader at the top of the C-level, category. So take a look and dig in, but just really quick, loyalty, the quality of being faithful, or I'm sorry, the quality of faithfulness and devotion to a nation, community, group, cause, person, or philosophy. And if we dig into this, what I think is super interesting, and Martha brought this out front and center, she said, before you can be loyal to anyone else or anything else, you have to be loyal to your own truth. You have to find a way to be authentically you. Otherwise, you following blindly behind a cause is not only disingenuous, but is dangerous. Find that authentic piece of you so that you know you are following the right leaders and you are moving in the right direction. And I love that concept. So the first piece, be loyal to your truth. Second, be loyal to your mission. Be a servant leader, right? And so whatever you're working towards, your mission is to improve yourself in order to improve the world around you. And then you do that with enthusiasm, empathy, and love. And her main point here was great leaders should never ask the people who follow them to be loyal to them as a human being, but they should be guiding them towards a purpose that if that leader disappears, another great leader can step in or rise up from the followers and continue to work towards that cause. So it's not the person, it's the purpose. And I loved that aspect of what she brought to this. And I just thought it was so important. And again, are we teaching this to our students? Are we remembering this in our hearts? Be loyal to your team, right? So communication is the glue that holds all of that together. And if you're going to be loyal to your team, you have to be honest and truthful in your communication. Super interesting there. Be loyal to progress. So you have to wake up every single day and say, hey, are we better today than we were yesterday? Are we 3 steps ahead or are we 3 steps behind? And if we're facing a challenge, what do we need to learn in order to get through those? And then finally, be loyal to courage. So courage is the bold confidence to do what's right in the face of fear, discomfort, and uncertainty. And sometimes when you are in a situation where you're asked to be loyal, the most loyal thing that you can do is have the courage to question. And that was really the key component that came out of the discussion that I had with Martha that day. So anyway, this is one of my favorites. They're all my favorites, to be honest with you. And whenever I do a new one, it's my new favorite. But we're dedicated and committed to expanding this entire library. We know it works. We have the evidence that shows that it can be effective in helping your kids develop that self-efficacy, that confidence in themselves, that tomorrow is going to be better today if they put the hard work in, that self-efficacy, right? And also that piece that is our emotional regulation and helping our kids understand, if I can get calm and connected to where I am right now and really get creative and thoughtful around why I'm feeling these emotions, then I'm going to be better off for myself, for my family, for my loved ones, for my friends, and for my community. And again, we want to give our kids the tools that they need in order to be able to share their greatness with the world. And so it's kind of my hope that students everywhere, teachers everywhere, coaches everywhere, administrators everywhere will do these journals together. Here's another quick tip. So we already talked about how you could do these every Tuesday or every Monday or whatever. You could do them once a week for 5 weeks if you didn't want to do them for 5 days. You don't even have to do these as journals. You could do these as discussion prompts. You could do these with your community circles, right? So you have your advisory period, and maybe you're not quite ready for journaling because you just are not sure if the students are going to buy into it. So just take these, put it up on your projector, talk through what grit is, have a little discussion, and then just use these as your discussion prompts. So you'll read through the all the work that's up here, and then you use our discussion prompts or our writing prompts as discussion prompts. So you could just say, hey, let's name a skill and at least one thing that has inspired you to practice and learn that skill. So what's a skill that y'all are learning? Some kids are going to say computer programming, 3D printing. Maybe it's a sport specific skill. Maybe it's an instrument. And then you can just go in and you can list these things out and use it as a class discussion. So again, it doesn't have to be, done exactly as we've kind of quote unquote prescribed it. And if you've ever heard me speak before or worked with any of the other resources, the open platform or anything like that, that I'm an educator. This is my 25th year of teaching, which is just insane to me. I don't want anyone to tell me exactly how to teach my students. And so we're not going to do that to you. The beautiful thing about all of this being free, you use it the way you want, you use what you like, you don't use what you don't like. And all of that is in a good place. So we have a few minutes left. I see there's tons of stuff in the chat. So let me just kind of go in. Eliza's been asked. Thank you, Eliza, for jumping in on some of these. What assessment tools are you using to measure journaling outcomes mentioned at the beginning of the presentation? So that is an awesome question. The reality of all of this is there are no really great assessment tools that you as a teacher would necessarily be able to utilize specifically. What I would say is utilize your discussions as your assessment, right? So, and we've worked through this with a number of our folks. As far as the evaluations, we provided quizzes to the kids and interviews and things like that. But in your world where you're trying to implement these journals and you're trying to do it in a way that is not going to take up a ton of time, right? So here's the reality. Use a discussion circle around these topics and around each entry to be your assessment. So it's going to do a number of things. Number one, it's going to start these conversations around proactive mental health that we all need to have. But then here's the other thing. You're going to have 5 students out of 20 students that don't do this. And they just sit there while you're supposed to be journaling and they do nothing, or they look on their phone or whatever they're doing, right? Once you have these discussions and kids get comfortable sharing and the discussions become rich, those 5 kids are going to listen. They're there. And even if they're a little bit tuned out, there are going to be bits and pieces of growth mindset or future self or grit or loyalty that sink in, right? And I know that collateral learning is not how we want to teach, but in some instances like this, it's probably the best we can do for students who are going to kind of marginalize themselves outside of this exercise. So I'm glad you asked this question. My answer is do the journaling and then use the journal prompts in the journal pages to then have a discussion about what kids wrote. We're not forcing them to say anything. We're not reading their journals. I don't want you to read their journals, all right? But the reality of the situation is you get a sense of where students are at in the process. Now, here's the other thing. Proactive mental health administrators think oftentimes, hey, we want this to be a solution so that we don't have to have as many counselors or kids will just be okay. That's not really how it's going to work. So the more we do exercises like this, we're going to arm our students with these tools to be resilient, but they're also going to talk about it more. They're also going to understand that they need resources. They're also going to, raise awareness around mental health. And that's a good thing, right? So I always kind of prompt everybody with that, because if you're looking for like something that's just going to delete mental health on your campus, there is no such thing. And so I'd rather build tools that will increase the amount of conversations that we have than do the opposite. All right. Where can I find the empowerment vocabulary word of the week? Great question. So there's a few things. Here we have our academic language tools under these 40-week journals. And we have all of these different words in a glossary. And then as you get to the end of the glossary, we get into our cards. And this is where you'll find those words. Right. So what I did, just to take you back, this is the journal page, the overall journal page that we went to. I went down to our 40-week journals and I clicked on academic language tools, and they're right there. There's also the leadership academic language, that's what Eliza pointed out, the academic language of leadership. And again, those are weekly. There's 40 of those. So if you click on that link that Eliza put in the chat, then you'll be able to access all of those. Tons and tons of academic language resources that you can use around leadership and proactive mental health. All right, Carmine, thanks for sharing that. So just kind of going through, trying to find any more. It looks like Eliza's been on it. Thank you, Eliza, for answering all of those. So honestly, we're getting close to the end of time, and I know that you all have a lot that you have to do as we kind of get through this. But I really appreciate all of you being here. I really appreciate all the work that you're doing on behalf of your students. And here's what I'm going to say as you kind of get started. Tap into Varsity Brands, tap into Believe in You, tap into openphysed.org and the Teachers Helping Teachers hashtag on social media, and tap into us just as like that positive vibe in your social media feed or wherever you are. It's going to be a great school year, but it's also going to be a challenging one. There's no doubt things are going to happen where we're going to have to come together. If there's anything that we can do that you feel like, hey, if you had a journal about this, it would really help my students, or if you had a resource that was like this and that would really help my students, please reach out. Aaron Hart at varsitybrands.com, or you can use any of the contact us forms on our websites and just say, hey, I'm trying to get a message to Aaron, and they will send those messages on to me. You can also catch me on social media, NY Aaron Hart on Twitter. But I really appreciate all that you're doing this school year. Stay strong and have a wonderful 2023-24 school year. And we'll see you again soon.